Their economy heavily relied on trade, using these highly standardized bronze weights and measures, but they were also deeply spiritual. We found the
All
great
right, welcome everyone. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here for today's Explainer. We are taking a seriously fascinating journey right back to the very beginning, the actual origins of human society. We're going to look at how early humans went from wandering around as nomadic hunters to building these massive, complex, thriving empires. And spoiler alert, it literally all comes down to geography, specifically the undeniable power of rivers. So let's jump right in.
Here is the roadmap for our journey today. We'll start with the dawn of river civilizations, then travel through Mesopotamia, head over to Egypt, explore the Indus Valley, and finally wrap things up in ancient China.
But before we get into the weeds, I want you to just think about something for a second. Have you ever wondered who actually decided that an hour should have exactly 60 minutes? Or, who had the brilliant idea to mash up a bunch of plants to make the very first sheet of paper? The ancient history we're unpacking today isn't just a bunch of dusty old ruins. It directly impacts the tools, the concepts, and the tech that you and I use literally every single day.
Okay, part 1, the dawn of river civilizations.
So, to set the stage, during the Neolithic period, humanity went through this massive, earth-shattering shift. For the longest time, we were just nomads, right? Surviving by hunting and gathering, constantly on the move. But then, around 12,000 years ago, boom, the agricultural revolution happens. Discovering how to farm meant humans could finally stop wandering. They could grow their own food, which naturally led to permanent villages, family structures, and eventually the highly complex civilizations and legal systems we're about to explore. And the crucial thing to remember here is that none of these major settlements happened by accident. Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, and China all shared one absolute game changer of a geographic feature. They were built on top of incredibly powerful river valleys. We're talking the Tigris and Euphrates, the Nile, the Indus, the Huanghe, and the Yangtze. These rivers provided outrageously fertile soil and an endless supply of fish. If you were just figuring out how to farm, finding one of these riverbanks was basically hitting the geographic jackpot.
Moving on to part 2, Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization.
60. It's a number we completely take for granted today, but it is entirely foundational to modern life, and we owe it all to Mesopotamian mathematicians. Traveling over to the Middle East, into what translates from Greek as the land between two rivers, we find modern-day Iraq, Iran, Syria, and Turkey. Over 7,000 years ago, the Sumerians, Babylonians, and Assyrians built civilization's cradle right in this fertile basin. And because they developed this incredibly brilliant base 60 math system, that is the exact reason why your clocks have 60 seconds and 60 minutes today. They even mapped out the 12 months of the year. The sheer number of firsts coming out of this region is mind-blowing. They completely rewired human capability. The Sumerians invented the wheel, though, fun fact, it was originally used for irrigation and building, not for carts. They also pressed cuneiform into clay, creating the world's very first writing system. That breakthrough gave us the Epic of Gilgamesh, the world's oldest map, and Hammurabi's incredibly advanced code of 282 laws. Meanwhile, the Assyrians figured out the 360-degree circle, the Chaldeans gave us the 7-day week, and they built these massive, towering pyramid temples called ziggurats. Now, because they didn't have great natural geographic defenses, they eventually fell to foreign invasions and climate changes. But honestly, their foundational discoveries changed humanity forever. All right, part 3, Egypt, the gift of the Nile. Emerging around 5000 BC, this second great ancient civilization sprouted up along the Nile River, which flows all the way from Lake Victoria to the Mediterranean, creating a sprawling 400,000 square mile empire. The Greek historian Herodotus completely hit the nail on the head when he called Egypt the gift of the Nile. Because without the river's super predictable, highly fertile flooding, Egypt would have just been an unlivable sandy extension of the Sahara Desert. The river was quite literally their lifeline. What's really fascinating about ancient Egypt is this wild balancing act between the practical and the divine. On the science and economy side, absolute geniuses. By 4200 BC, they already had a 365-day solar calendar. They were using fractions and geometry to measure land, and they were trading wheat and linen all across the Mediterranean. But on the flip side, their entire society was deeply anchored by religion. The pharaohs weren't just politicians, they were seen as literal descendants of the sun god Ra. And that intense religious focus on the afterlife is exactly what drove them to spend flood seasons building those monumental royal projects and perfecting the crazy medical science of mummification.
They left behind such an optimistic, vibrant legacy. After King Narmer united the fragmented state, they developed hieroglyphics and a 24-letter alphabet. They took river reeds, pressed them together, and created papyrus, which, yes, is where we get the word paper. And thank goodness Napoleon's troops later stumbled upon the Rosetta Stone, because it gave us the key to actually reading their history today. Throw in the majestic Sphinx and the Great Pyramid of Khufu, and you have an architectural mastery that perfectly captured their beliefs.
Next up, Part 4, the Indus Valley and its advanced urban planning. The sheer scale of the Indus Valley civilization is hard to even wrap your head around. Sometime between 3300 and 1300 BC, the Dravidian people built this incredibly mysterious Bronze Age society. To put this into perspective, we are talking about an empire covering 1.26 million square kilometers across modern-day Pakistan and India. It supported over 5 million people. But it wasn't just huge, it was shockingly modern. When archaeologists started digging up cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro in the 1920s, they found the ancient world's most advanced urban planning. I mean, we are talking streets laid out in perfect grid patterns, houses built with standardized, perfectly baked bricks. They even had incredibly effective underground plumbing and drainage systems. The housing sizes even point to a structured social class system. These folks were master engineers way before the Iron Age.
Their economy heavily relied on trade, using these highly standardized bronze weights and measures, but they were also deeply spiritual. We found the Great Bath, which hints at purification rituals, and the Pashupati seal, a horned deity sitting in a pose that looks exactly like early yoga and meditation. It really laid the philosophical groundwork for ancient India. But here is the wild part. Their written script, still completely undeciphered. We literally can't read it. And their collapse is just as mysterious. Experts think a nasty combo of shifting rivers, climate change, and lost trade routes just slowly choked out this magnificent society.
And finally, Part 5, China, Innovation and Philosophy. Because East Asia was geographically isolated behind massive mountains and huge deserts, the Huanghe and Yangtze River valleys saw this continuous, unbroken evolution of Chinese dynasties. They basically birthed the foundation of modern China entirely independently. From the early debated days of the Shah, to the Shang's bronze work, the Zhou's philosophical boom, the Qins starting the Great Wall, all the way to the Han Dynasty's scientific golden age. And the glue holding all this together? The mandate of heaven. The core belief that a ruler's right to govern was a divine reward for moral virtue. Now, that dynastic continuity was heavily shaped by Confucianism. Founded by Confucius, this philosophy was all about establishing structure, respect, and family-centric harmony. It leaned on 5 core principles: humanity, etiquette, righteousness, knowledge, and honesty. It basically created this very rigid, highly respectful social order where everyone knew exactly what their place and responsibilities were. But then you have Taoism, founded by Lao Tzu, which is basically the exact opposite vibe. It shifts the focus completely away from strict societal rules and instead tells people to align themselves with the way, or the Tao. It's all about finding peace and meaning by just living in perfect harmony with the natural, spontaneous flow of the universe. Together, these two, along with Buddhism later down the line, created a really beautifully balanced cultural mindset. And technologically, absolute powerhouses. The Han Dynasty gave us paper and printing, which perfectly preserved brilliant ideas like Sun Tzu's The Art of War. They mastered the magnetic compass, invented gunpowder, built the Great Wall for massive defense, and engineered the Grand Canal, the world's longest artificial waterway. And thanks to the Silk Road, Chinese innovation didn't stay locked in Asia. It flowed out to the Middle East and Europe, forever revolutionizing global trade and warfare. The whole shebang. So, as we wrap up our journey through these 4 incredible ancient river civilizations, I want to leave you with a thought. We've seen how mud, water, and pure human ingenuity birthed mathematics, written law, and profound philosophy. If rivers built the ancient world, leaving us with the pyramids, the Great Wall, and the 60-minute hour, what legacy is our modern, hyper-connected, tech-driven civilization going to leave behind 5,000 years from now? It is definitely something fascinating to chew on.